I have clicked onto the global tropical overview for July the 7th, 2024. As is always the case in these videos, the flood expected are mine alone, and if you're going to make any decisions ahead of any tropical cyclones, look to your local office, local emergency management, and your local tropical cyclone warning center. We have Tropical Storm Beryl continuing to come towards the Texas coast tonight. You can see it here on Corpus Christi radar, coming just now east of Corpus Christi. It's pretty far off from Corpus Christi, but just about due southeast. And the system has continued to struggle today with dry air. Can't really see it on radar all too much, but we have dry air coming in on the east side still, wrapping into the north side. And we've had consistently today lots of dry air getting into the center, keeping a lot of this convection that you see around the center now from wrapping fully around and building an eye wall. Now, hurricane models have continued to forecast this to change at some point tonight, and the expectation still remains that this will continue to sort of have this banding structure like this and eventually turn into an eye wall later tonight. And we might be seeing the process of that take place right now. You can see this convection is wrapping around now, getting to the western and maybe now the southern side of the center. And this may be Beryl's attempt now to try and close off an eye wall. Now, one thing this is going to do is this will likely cause a fairly quick ramp up in winds before landfall. And this has been expected for the past few days. This wasn't going to be, rapidly intensifying down here in the western Gulf. This was going to be a quick intensification near the coastline of Texas. And right now it's a tropical storm with about 60-mile-per-hour winds, and the current expectation from the National Hurricane Center is for it to make landfall around 85 or 90 miles per hour. So a fairly quick ramp up overall. That's nearly rapid intensification around that threshold. And this could be a very significant impact here, even though we're not, getting that worst case scenario of that models were trying to show a few days ago of getting, a Category 3 hurricane coming in here. Now, in terms of the actual landfall point, models are pretty honed in on the area around Matagorda Bay or just up the coast from there. That seems to be what we're generally on track for. The storm seems to be tracking generally northwest right now, which would eventually put the track towards Matagorda Bay. And once we get to landfall, we'll be making a slight bend towards the north, so that could make the landfall spot a little bit further east than exactly Matagorda Bay. But the system is forecast to bring a lot of heavy rainfall and storm surge to this part of the Texas coastline. And this will be a significant impact, like I said, even just being a Category 1 hurricane. Now we're going to go to the recon data real quick because we do have a recon plane in there flying in, and you'll see what we're contending with right now. Now, one thing that we've consistently been watching today is can we get these stronger winds to be more centered near the eye of Beryl, or the center of Beryl, rather. All day today, they've been pretty spread out. It's been a pretty broad low overall. But now we might be seeing that this data from this Hurricane Hunter plane suggests that this radius of maximum wind, as it's called, is beginning to contract a little bit. And this is a key process for the storm if it needs to intensify. When it's broad, broad storms have a tendency to pull in a lot of dry air because they take up a lot more surface area. But when you also get it more broad, it makes it a bit more difficult to pick up moisture off the ocean, because that wind overall is spread out over a greater area, and because of that, the wind is not as strong. When you have them more concentrated towards the eye of a hurricane, per se, like this may be trying to do right now, you have stronger winds on that pressure gradient between, the outside environments and the eye. And those winds are very efficient then, when they're stronger, to pull that moisture up from the ocean surface. And throughout that process, that moisture can be helped to take care of the dry air issues that a storm may be having. And this might be what we're seeing with Beryl. This would add up with radar because we are seeing that convection now wrap around fully around that eye or the center. And we might be seeing the starting phases of what could be an eye wall being built. Now, the environment overall is fairly favorable for intensification to continue all the way up to landfall. You can see on the water vapor imagery, the upper low that we had west of the storm yesterday has dissipated. It's If it's still there, it's extremely weak and having no effect anymore on the storm. You can tell that because we have this upper level cirrus now expanding to the south, which was restricted yesterday because we had all that moderate southerly shear from that low. Now, one thing you'll also point out, or be able to point out on this map, is this upper level outflow expanding away to the north and accelerating as it does so, as it gets into, say, the Arctic region over the United States. This is in response to an upper trough that is digging in over the southern United States, and this is a jet that is starting to shape up here around this portion of the US. And this is going to be one of those jet interactions that we've seen so many times in the past year, of where this system may have that very quick phase of intensification because we have a lot of jet dynamics ongoing north of here. These are generally favorable, especially in a low shear environment like this, because they help the release of latent heat. So when these thunderstorms go up, they release that heat energy, and that needs to be dealt with. It needs to be dispersed from a tropical cyclone efficiently, and this jet allows that more efficient process to happen, and this can help systems intensify at pretty quick rates. And we've seen in jet interaction cases, storms ramp up extremely fast. Think like Hurricane Ian in 2022. That ramped up very fast before landfall in southwest Florida from a Category 3 to a Category 5. Now, of course, this is not going to be an Ian. We're not going to get a Category 5 making landfall here, but this could help that quick rise of winds right before landfall. Now, in terms of what we can expect as we go into landfall, what's the reasonable worst case scenario for winds? I would say about 100 miles per hour. So a Category 2 hurricane is probably the reasonable worst case scenario that we'll see here from Beryl. The chances of a major hurricane have come down significantly as it's been dealing with the dry air a lot over the past day, and that's really kept it from getting an eye wall structure built over the past day. And that's likely taken down the threat of, a Category 3 hurricane. But models like the H4 still do show the potential for the system to get upwards of 100 miles per hour winds before it comes in. You can see this on the model. It's got a pressure down to 960 millibars, which is about, on the model, 100 or 105 mile per hour winds at that landfall time frame. And you can also see the jet interaction taking place. And this does have some concern, of course, for impacts to central Texas, as now it's a tropical storm. And we could be talking about mid-grade, high-grade Category 1 hurricane getting to that Category 2 threshold in less than 12 hours. That's a very quick ramp up. And one thing for everyone in central Texas to keep in mind is that, yes, the storm is not intensifying, as models that wanted a major hurricane to do so up to this point, but it is still having that chance of quickly increasing its winds, and that's expected tonight because this environment is favorable. And this will probably be a case where we're looking at this in future and be like, man, I'm glad the system didn't have more time over water, as this kind of an interaction with enough water time can be really dangerous when a storm is coming ashore. And just keep in mind that tonight we're still at a tropical storm, but we could be looking at a significant hurricane coming in to this part of the coastline tomorrow morning. Now, it's not just winds. We're also anticipating a lot of storm surge impacts and rainfall impacts. You can see the storm surge warning has been up the coast, moved up the coast since my last video, now from about Corpus Christi Bay to the Texas-Louisiana border. And you can see the reason why. We've had a significant uptick in the potential storm surge across all of these areas along central Texas, likely because of the eastward trend in the track over the past day, but also the potential for that storm to be a bit stronger. A stronger storm is going to be able to push more water onshore. And you can see, especially here in Matagorda Bay, from about Port O'Connor to St. Louis Pass, we could be looking at 4 to 7 feet of storm surge above normally tight dry ground. And keep in mind, this is not taking into account the waves on top, which could add, an extra foot or more on top of that. And if you're in an evacuation order tonight around any of these areas along the Texas coastline, you still have time to heat it. The system is still offshore. You can see here on radar that we still got several hours. Landfall is expected about, around the 5 a.m. time frame, so about less than 12 hours before landfall. but you've got time to still leave if you can, or if you want to, slash need to, if you're in an evacuation order along any of these portions of the coastline. As storm surge is nothing to mess around with. The power of water is often underestimated, and storm surge is the leading cause of fatalities in hurricanes. And just got to make sure you're safe as the system comes in. Now, the water issues are not going to just be to the coastline. We could have a significant stretch of rainfall as the system pushes in. You can see from this Weather Prediction Center forecast, we could have a wide range of 4 to 6 inches of rain, locally higher totals, stretching into Oklahoma and Arkansas. But you can see, particularly here in Texas, we could have totals 8 to 12 inches of rain along portions of the coastline, including, Houston, Galveston, Matagorda Bay around there. And that could easily cause a lot of flooding issues. Keep in mind, where that water's going is where the water's being pushed up. So you may have a bit of convergence as well, where the rainwater is trying to go into the ocean, but the ocean's coming in. And that could cause additional flooding issues along that part of the coast. And keep in mind as well, for eastern Texas, I know you need the rain because we're in a drought, but too much rainfall, like 4 to 6 inches of rain locally higher than that in a short period of time, is not a good thing. Even, or not just even, but especially when you're in a drought, because the soils are not going to be as efficient as taking in that moisture as they would normally be. And that could cause increased flooding issues along this entire corridor. And if you're, ahead of the storm, in the storm's path of all this rainfall, just make sure you're staying weather aware as the system does come through. And if you have any flash flood warnings or flood warnings issued by the Weather Service, make sure you're taking those seriously, as those are issued for very good reason. I'll leave links to the National Hurricane Center page and the National Weather Service page in the top of the description. This will be my last video on Tropical Storm Beryl. Stay safe in Texas as the system comes through, and stay safe across the U.S. as the system comes ashore and moves northeast. And hopefully we'll be enjoying a quieter period in the Atlantic after Beryl dissipates. That's all that I've got for today. Thanks for watching.